Hello, I would like to start a series of 12 videos that are going to explain the 12 different stress factors that are associated with technostress. Please watch with me if you want to become more informed about what is causing technostress at work. One of the first stressors or factors of stress are constant availability or invasion. It is that feeling that no matter how many boundaries you're trying to set with your workplace, you still feel that you have to check your email, that you have to look at your LinkedIn profile, that you have to pick up your phone when your employees are calling. Especially leaders have a hard time with work life balance, with constant availability, and the feeling of invasion. It's a feeling that is also affecting, most likely, your spouse, your partner, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, but also if you have children, it's also affecting your children because children are watching the behaviors of their parents. And if we're constantly on our phones, guess what our children are going to do? And a lot of leaders have reported this to me in my research studies. They told me, Alexandra, I would like to set boundaries for my children, but they're watching me. And what do they see me do? I'm constantly available. Invasion, constant availability, this is actually the stress factor that I've noticed first when I conducted research studies. One leader once told me, I go to work, I work from 9 to 5. It takes me 1 hour to commute back home. I have dinner with my family and then I'm available again. Why? Because I work with teams overseas. So she was placed in Denmark, she was situated in Denmark, but the team that she was working with was also situated in the States. What that meant was that she felt that whenever she was disconnected from her workplace, she was letting her team down and she was delaying her team because she did not consider that maybe the return pace of this task should be a little bit longer so that I can also relax and in the long term not go on a sick leave due to burnout. Yeah. Another aspect of it is a lot of leaders, a lot of people, whenever they're having dinner with their families or they're in the weekends or even worse on vacation, what are they thinking of? Has someone had that person reply to my email? Another person I've interviewed for my research studies told me that she was asked to just keep an eye on her inbox while she's on vacation. Why? Because they were implementing a new IT system. What that meant for that person was that she was constantly attentive to her inbox. She could never fully disconnect and relax while on vacation. She was on vacation for 2 or 3 weeks, and that was not enough for her to return to work and feel that she's on top of things and that she has completely disconnected. The worst part about it is research tells us that we need 11 hours in a row of complete disconnect in order to not have, suffer from burnout in the long run. So if we're constantly available, on the one side, whom are we actually serving? Are we serving the interest of the company or are we serving the interest of our health? We need to be careful about that. And on the other hand, as a company, you have to consider that it's a strong investment in your employees to let them know that they don't have to be constantly available. How can you do that in practice? Well, think about it. The culture, how do we create a culture? Culture is not what we say, culture is what we do. If you tell your employees that they can safely disconnect and not respond to emails, but if you're a leader and at the same time you are texting your employees in their weekends, in their vacation, you are responding fast to emails even though maybe you should also be on vacation or be free during weekends, you're sending the signal that this is how we're supposed to be doing. Another employee that I interviewed, she worked in a very large pharmaceutical company here in Denmark. And in Denmark, we have very good work-life balance rules. But at the same time, she told me, if Alexandra, if I only work 9 to 5, people will think that I'm not engaged enough. I see my manager responding to emails at 5 a.m. in the morning. I see my colleagues responding to emails at 5 a.m. in the morning. And I'm sure that when I go home, emails are flying around as well. I feel like I'm missing out. I feel that I cannot come to work prepared. And I fear that they might see me as someone who's not sufficiently engaged in her work. She told me that it is the culture of engagement that makes us constantly create emails, constant stream of emails, right? The downside of it is that we're also creating chatter, we're also creating digital clutter, we're also creating digital noise. We are sending more emails than we should because we want to create the image that we are constantly connected. Even worse, research shows that when people work remotely, they feel the need to be visible, to make themselves feel visible. Why? Because they are not physically visible in their office space. For that reason, they're creating more online communication, more than necessary. Of course, you have to have some online communication, but sometimes they're overdoing it just to feel that they are present and that their colleagues do not feel their absence. But what can we do about it? Well, we have to remember we have the right to disconnect. If you're an employee, you have the right to disconnect. And that's something that in Europe we've already defined. You have the right to disconnect, the right to not answer to emails in the evenings, in your off time, in your vacation, during your weekends. And you should not suffer the consequences. There should be no consequences for you not responding in your free time. I know that there are many parts in the world, including in Europe, a lot of countries where this is not the case, right? Where you cannot just disconnect because you are going to be seen as less engaged. It's important as an organization to, and as a leader, to know that very often we overestimate our ability to communicate a clear message. Yeah? So a lot of leaders, they're actually under communicating about these issues. And if you are a leader, if you are someone who's leading a team or an organization, it's important to understand that more communication does not mean more quality of work. You might be losing money and you might be losing talent. Why? Because people who are good at what they're doing are not going to put up with not having any free time whatsoever and feeling that they're constantly invaded. If one, they do not agree with it, they are not in at the age where work is the only thing that they're doing. And there are people who are in that season of their lives, and if that's their choice, that's their choice. And so it's important to set some boundaries, right? For yourself and for your employees. In your Outlook, there are some settings that says delay scheduling. So you can schedule when, not delay schedule, but schedule when to send that email. So instead of just pressing send, if it's Sunday evening, you can schedule to send it within working hours on Monday. I've also seen leaders who are signing their email with saying we're all different. We work at different times. The fact that I've sent you an email outside of working hours does not mean that I expect an answer right away. A third thing you can do is stop rewarding fast responses. How many times have you received an email which said, thank you for answering so fast. Thank you for your quick response. Of course, it's very nice when we get a fast reply to our inquiry, but think of what happens on the other side. Is that person staying just to, constantly and fast respond to your emails and thus not engaging in focus work? There is a cost associated with fast responses. And unless that person works in a customer facing job, we might wonder, okay, shouldn't our team have time to actually focus on the tasks that matter most to them? Another thing that happens is that some employees, they check their emails in the evenings or in the morning before coming into work because they feel a need to be prepared when they come into work. But what kind of job does one have if you need to prepare at home just to come into work? Reading emails, being attentive to emails, it's important to acknowledge this is work, because as soon as you read an email, even though you might not want to respond to it, it's still occupying a lot of your cognitive space. Did you know that it takes, and the research here is not in agreement on how long it takes, but it could take maybe 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes for every time you get interrupted to get back to what you're doing. We're going to talk about not having time for deep work in another video, but even when you're at home, if you're just reading your email while you're playing with your kids, while you're interacting with your spouse, it takes 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes of still thinking about your work and the email you have read instead of being present with the people that you actually love. So there are some things you can do if you're an employee. There's other things you can do if you're a leader and you have the power to decide. But what's important to acknowledge is that it can cost you your health if you're constantly connected to your work. It can cost the company a lot of money because employees are not necessarily doing productive work just because they're constantly available. And it can cost you talent because your best people are not going to put up with having to be constantly connected to their workplace, especially if they don't agree with it and if the work that they are doing is not high quality and high focus work, which is the kind of work that a lot of us really enjoy to get done. Okay? Thank you for your attention. I'm Raluca Alexandra Stana. I'm your guide to thriving in a hyper digitalized world, and with my videos, I hope and I aim to show you how you can save time, money, and talent by working with Technostress.